All right, so today I'm joined by Anne Armstrong, who is the founder of My Gnome on the Roam. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you.
All right, so let's see. My understanding is that you're a middle school teacher. At the taping of this episode, it's in end of March. We're in the midst of a pandemic, and of course, everybody is teaching online. Are you using Google Meet or Hangout for your classes?
We are, I believe, the third largest district in the country. And so, because of inequity of our families, we can't do mandatory teaching. Instead, we're sending links to families who have computers, making sure that everybody has their immediate needs met, food. We have food distribution going on throughout the community. I teach gifted kids, so I pull my students out from their regular classes. So I'm working in cooperation with, I have two schools actually. I'm working in cooperation with their regular ed teachers just to make sure that they have all their needs met. And then, putting together resources for parents who are not trained as educators to hopefully help kids stay busy, but also not make parents feel overwhelmed in this time when I think everyone is feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds like you're in a very interesting situation, and having to resort to really just having resources online for essentially self-service. And given the fact that the kind of students that you teach, they need a lot more hands-on, so it certainly makes it a little bit more challenging. And certainly for the parents, they're having to spend more time with them in a more academic context, and they may not be necessarily trained for that type of instruction. So, well, thank you for your work, and I appreciate you working through this
Thank you.
difficult times for all of us. So, which actually brings us to the topic at hand, which is your creation called My Gnome on the Roam, which I think is relevant for the time that we're in. You mentioned that when your son was about 2.5 years old, you went on an adventure someplace, and during that summer period, I guess this inspiration came about. Can you give us the story behind that?
Yeah, well, he at 2.5, they're just starting to get old enough to really have small adventures. And it was such a blissful summer. I adopted my son at the age of 44. So I had decades of dreaming of what we would do together. And that summer was really the first time I got to feel like the mom that I really wanted to be. And then I went back to school. And I would get home, there was laundry, there was dinner, there was, as he grew older, soccer, and there were all kinds of bids for our time, and not enough time for all the adventures I had kind of dreamed up in all the time I had waited for him. And so I started coming up with ideas for how to kind of have mini adventures in little pockets of time and still hopefully make the most of those little pockets that we had. And so that is where my product was sort of born. There are multiple products now, but they're all designed to kind of help families build adventure.
Yeah, I really like what you're saying, and it's got to resonate with lots of parents where both parents work and they have a lot of demands, and on top of that, when they're home, they're having to cook and clean. And as much as they want to spend that quality time either away from the house or even just doing activities together, finding that just that quantity of time in a continuous fashion is so difficult. So what you're talking about is whether you have a few minutes here and there or just maybe like 15 minutes, half an hour, you're able to do something that really enriches the child and then really creates that bond between the parent and that child. Is that right?
That's exactly it. And ironically, I think it really enriches everybody. It's kind of set up on, depending on what product you choose or whatever, the basic idea is that you have a little adventure, and then later you reflect on the time that was spent together, which is really almost as rich as having the adventure itself, because it gives you time to talk about, think about, and hopefully write about what did you learn? What did you discover? What did you learn about yourself and each other All opportunities to do all of that, in a short amount of time, and then to reflect on it. And that can be really, really powerful. We have the opportunity to really shape our kids' experience a bit and author it, and also let our kids author some of it for us as well. They are equal members of the family, and as the adventures grow and they grow, I think they become empowered to come up with their own ideas for adventures as
So
well.
Anne, I think people are probably dying to see what you're referring to because right now they don't have a visual of what you're referring to. Do you have
Sure,
something that you can show us in terms of what you're referring
absolutely.
to? And if you, for those that
So
are just listening to audio, if you could provide a bit of description, that would be helpful as well.
Sure. So our this is our main kit, our Gnome on the Roam adventure kit, and it comes in a suitcase that can also be a space for collecting souvenirs and things of the adventures that you take. I brought the gnome that my son and I designed. His name is Gustav. You can name him anything you like, but the story of the original gnome is written about Gustav, so he is ours. You can draw on him with colored pencil or marker, and the idea is that he becomes a family mascot and sort of an adventure companion, that he comes along on your adventures with you. Then there is the book that tells about kind of his backstory, how he wants to have adventures, but he needs the help of a little girl to bring him along on adventures. There are pages inside that you can color, and of course you can read the story again and again. But the thing that's cool about this book is that the end of this story becomes the beginning of your own story, and it comes with a journal that's simple but important because, as I said, this is the place where you get to reflect on your adventures and write down so that you remember them later. And it's got just a simple place for you to write what you've done, and a little place for a picture or a drawing or ticket stubs or leaves that you found in the park. There's no rules, just ideas. And then a magical little pen that you get to use to write in the journal.
Well, I have two kids now. They're much older. One's in high school, one's in middle school. But I know my daughter, when she was younger, she would have absolutely loved this because what you're doing is you're eliciting creativity and fantasy play and allowing for their imagination to be unbounded. And so it is guided, like you said, you have the book and the coloring aspects and the storyline. But after that, it's really up to them to, create that fictional character that becomes another family member and allow for them to travel and do things together. And
Right.
especially in the context of the pandemic where we're homebound, it becomes even more important to find those adventures without necessarily having to go to a park or zoo. So tell us, how can parents use this in the current time that's relevant?
Ironically, I had plans of doing a crowdfunding, and then I thought I'm not going to do that right now because I don't want to feel opportunistic. And then as I told friends that I thought I was going to hold off, they were like, "Don't do that. Please do it now, because we need this now more than ever." So the idea is spring break and summer travel has essentially been kiboshed for our own safety and the safety of others. So, but we can really still author these ideas for our kids, making little pockets of magic. We have an app on Apple and Google Play that gives you a daily idea for something you can do in your backyard, in your kitchen, in the park around the corner. And most of those things are free or inexpensive and can be done in short periods of time. You can certainly extend them, and now we actually have the gift of time, which we don't generally have, but it gives parents a daily idea for something that can be done, something that can be made, something that can be explored, even from your own couch. and still really give kids a sense that they've done something different and unique, and spent quality time together.
Well, it sounds terrific. So, how can people find out more about My Gnome on the Roam?
I think the best place is to visit our website, which is www.mygnomeontheroam.com. It talks about everything that we talked about today. It shares our products and lots of free resources for families.
Terrific. So, again, I've been joined by Anne Armstrong, who is a founder and a middle school teacher who created My Gnome on the Roam. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you for having me.